My name's Robin Dodd. I'm a landscape photographer based in the UK, and today we're going to show you how I go about creating compositions in woodland in the UK and how I would then go on to edit those compositions. So it's late afternoon and it started raining. I tend not to go out during the daytime for woodland photography if it's the middle of the summer, unless it rains. And you can see that's because it just saturates within the forest, and that what makes it ideal. So basically I've got the tree here as the focal point, but on either side there's trees. They're beech trees. They're sort of a little bit gnarly. It's quite nice, and the idea is they're companions to this main subject, and this main subject's just got a darker side on one side. Do you need a polarizer? I don't think you really do need a polarizer in this, because of the time of the day and because it's over, it's summer. We got the canopy. The main light is coming from up here, from this direction, so we just clock that in our heads for when we come back to edit this subject. That's really important. You can see light on the side of the trees here, and we just make sure that that's emphasised when we come back, because that's what the scene is all about. And in the far distance, we've got that beautiful ethereal glow a little bit because of the rain, and just gives that really nice light gliding off into the distance. There is a very small patch of clear sky there, which blows out as a tiny highlight, and it may be that I might cheat a little for that, and I might just fill that in with AI, not AI, but clone that area out, so that it's not distracting, but it's a tiny little area really at the end of the day. And it's just a question of trying to find scenes like this with not too much light or sky, which is sort of like a leaden, a grey sky at the moment if you look at it from the human eye's perspective, but for the camera it just looks like a white distraction. So we're trying to keep that low. That's why you don't see the whole tree, but you see the roots and the holly and these the twisted trees receding into the background. So that's the important thing. Okay, let's see if we can find something else. So when it rains, what I'm looking for is like really nice textures on the trees. This is quite nice with it dribbling down through the centre. I'd probably preferred it on the side a little bit, and that's the main subject. And we've got the light coming in from the side here, and so again we just need to register that in our heads that it's coming from the side. And you'll see that the leaves over here on the tree in the dark, actually with the light coming in, they really reflect, and I'll show you now what it's like with the polarizer and without the polarizer. And so it's really important to see how the polarizer directs the viewer's eye onto the subject, which is the tree here. We don't want it on those trees behind us or on the leaves, and they become bright with the sheen from the waxy cuticles on top of the leaves and the wet. So we just use the polarizer to snap that off and bring the viewer's focus back onto this tree here. And it's just a question of aligning it up. You'll see a couple of shots, they're slightly different angles, and it's a question of deciding which trees on either side in the background are going to be the supporting act really. And that's another important thing to remember when you're composing in the woodlands. And we're going down the slope, and the valley goes up on the other side, and it's starting to get a little bit of mist as the sun's burnt a bit of that water off. Only a little bit, but it's in the top of the canopy, and that helps me greatly. Yeah, let's crack on, see if we can find something else. Okay, here we are. Here's our image. It's pretty straightforward, this, to start off with. We've got f13 on the right hand side. You can see the details for it in the library. Shot at f13, 32 millimeters, slightly wide. Quite often do 50 millimeters, and then 1 second at ISO 400. So the image has got the whole dynamic range through it, so it's a bit lighter than it was at the time, so we need to bring that back in. The reason is we want to try and get as much detail as possible without getting any noise within the image. So if you remember, I said which direction the light was coming from the left hand side. You can see the arrow here now, and we'll just stick that into the develop mode. So the first thing that I do is I go to my global adjustments here in Lightroom on the right hand side, and then I make the image smaller on a white background, and this emulates what it would look like if it was printed on a wall, that type of thing. So it gives me a good idea of what the image looks overall. It's almost like a thumbnail, and to my mind that's the best way to start doing the edits, to get that good overall global feel to it. So that's it, made smaller, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the exposure right the way down. I think probably about 130, and then what I want to do is bring that light back, but in a bit more of a contrasty way, because we're within the forest canopy, so we're just going to recreate that light, so to speak. Because I'm going to bring this back with a radial gradient, so I've clicked on that and I click on the radial gradient for a mask. Make it very big. This is why we've got it smaller, down to 6%, because you wouldn't be able to do this otherwise unless you'd made the image much smaller. Going to make it quite broad. This area here, that basically is the feathering for this. I think that's about right. And now we're going to bring some light back in just by cranking the exposure on the right hand side here up. There you go, it's up to about 230, that looks about right. And so that's 2.5 stops almost back up, and then you have to put in more contrast. If you increase exposure, you have to increase contrast, which is what I've done there. So we can turn this on and off. There we go, that's what we're looking at. So the next items at the bottom here are the shadows, whites and blacks. We're still within the filter. You can either come out and do that globally or just within the filter. I'm going to come out and just look at doing that globally. So look at the shadows, doesn't really make a lot of difference, and the whites does, probably up a little bit, and then the blacks just down a touch, but it's pretty much personal preference really. I'm not touching any of the stuff down here, dehaze, clarity. A lot of amateurs go for this, the clarity, texture and all. You don't need that. This is Woodland photography. So now we're going to make it a little bit bigger so we can see it, and I just think it's a little bit too dark down in the bottom left of the tree here, so I'm just going to add another filter, another mask, and that is going to be a radial again. Just going to put that there, so, and we're just going to brighten that area up a little bit by the tree. There we go. So like I said, as soon as the exposure goes up, we need to put the contrast, and then I might even sort of put some shadows in there. There we go, that's that done. So the before and the after, it's not very different, it's a subtle difference. That's the before and this is the after. So that's the end image. before we now take that into Photoshop for the final finishing touches. And the way to do that is right click, go to editing, and then open as edit in Photoshop, this one up here. Okay, here we are in Lightroom. We dropped it in. Now all we need to do is duplicate the layer, and I'm going to add my plugin, which is Nik Collection, which is a very specific plugin made by I think it's DxO, and it's filters, and I use Color EFX Pro 4. There we go. And hopefully that plugin will load. Okay, so now the plugin's loaded in, and what we're going to do is you can see it's added the tones there. The sliders here adjust it. I've got it set roughly for what I like. Let's have a look at it and make it bigger so that you can see. And all we're really interested in here is the front area, so we only want to apply that to the front area. So the way to make that more specific and local is to add what are known as these control points, which is a bit like filters on Lightroom, but they're just little points. So I can duplicate these and go all the way along the tree, because I just want this tonality at the front and I want it down at the front. And there we go, just duplicating and pulling them across. I'm not going to show you how to use this plugin. There's plenty of tutorials on that. Now if I click like this, you can see the luminosity, so white reveals and black conceals. There is too much of the contrast going into the background, so I want to get rid of that, and I just put a negative on that side, and I'm just going to make it a bit smaller, then duplicate a few of those and go around and make sure I've got the areas concealed from the contrast that I want concealed. That's good. And I just want to add a bit more to the tree, just to make sure that the tree is completely getting the contrast boost that I wanted. There we go. I think that's okay. And just then add another -1 up the top here. That's good. So come back out of there, and we just have a look by turning it on and off, and you can see at the front how it's sharpening and putting contrast into the front there. So now all I do is I'm going to save that back into Lightroom. So it's now added the tonal contrast layer from Nik Collection, and you can see I can turn it on and off, and you can see the contrast coming in only on the tree at the front and the leaves on the foreground. So that's good. So that's how I wanted it. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to compress all the layers together and just create one layer. Another way, so I've got this plugin that does that for me, but another way is to do it is to press Shift, Control, Alt and then E all together on a Windows computer. So here we go, and now I'm just working on this layer on the right here. So I'm now going to add the autumn effect, and the way this is done is filter, blur, and then we go to Gaussian blur, and then it brings up a dialog box, and here it says 40%, so my camera is 50 megapixels, but this is a slightly cropped image, so 40 is about right. So the amount of blur you probably want similar to the number of pixels you've got in your camera. So if you've got a 20 megapixel camera, the blur is 20. If it's 50 megapixel, it's 50. Press OK, and then I go to Image, Adjust, Levels, and then I bring this right up so it looks quite garish. So the highlights are coming right up. That's about the right level now, so they're a bit blown out, and then you bring some contrast in, so there's some garish dark. Now that image just looks awful, but what we do is we go here to opacity and we slide it all the way back down, and it goes to what our starting image was just a minute ago, and then we can bring up the autumn effect, and you can see how it sort of like hazes the highlights is the best way to describe it. So it adds a slight bit of blur and extra boost to the highlights. So that's 20%. My view, that's too much. Sometimes they say it should be about 14-15%. Yes, that looks okay, but I like to be a bit more subtle than that, not to make it look obvious. So that's about 11% for me. So I click on and off. In fact, even 11% is too much for me, so I'm just going to go down to about 7%. There we go. And then that's given it this boost in the highlights, which is a very subtle boost in the highlights. But I like to make sure that my image here at the front is going to be still completely pin sharp and not have that autumn effect added to it. So the way I do that is I add a mask, and then I get the black brush, and basically I'm just going to mask along here. And if you see in the right hand side over here, you'll see the black area coming up. So that's basically masking it. I've got it on 50-60% at the moment, but each time you brush over it, it starts building it up and maybe making it into almost 100%. It's just, you know, it gets blacker in this area here the more you're blocking out the effect, and I'm pretty much blocking all of the effect out on those areas, so I'm happy with that, and that's good. So this is pretty much the completed image, and that's it. So all we do now is we get the layers, flatten them, and then save it back into Lightroom, and that's our image completed. Okay, so that's it. Don't forget to have a look at my ebook, which is a 140-page long ebook on compositions within Woodlands and how to edit and that type of thing. I think it's probably quite useful to a lot of people. Here's me scrolling through it. Shows you how to find the compositions, the weather, that type of thing, type of kit you need, and how to do some editing. So thank you for watching, and until next time, bye bye.